Um, so I'm sure the information's in there, but Brian, tell me a little bit about, I mean, how, like, what looking at here? I mean, like, how did you kind of become, or how did this all kind of come about? You know, what's kind of your background as far as all this VR stuff is concerned?
Yeah, for sure. So REM5 is we're like a hybrid restaurant bar VR space out in St. Louis Park. So right, think of it like, Top Golf but for VR. So you can come and you can eat and drink and have fun, and it's definitely more of a social experience than like hardcore gaming. We really think it's a
Sure.
nice way to get people introduced to VR, families, people of all ages. So once COVID hit, and we got shut down basically mid-March, like the rest of the world, we started exploring other options that both are outside of traditionally putting a headset on people. So, like everyone here, we're all just at our computers at home, but yet we're in, a truly virtual space. We're not just having a teleconference. Um, and so, what's really cool is for this platform is the amount of use cases are kind of unlimited, right? So everything that we were doing in the real world can kind of translate into this type of space. If you think about museums, art galleries, group meetups, comedy shows, concerts, it all really lends itself quite nicely to both being an experience that people can do remotely at home. And if you have a VR headset at home, you can be with us in virtual reality. So that's the cool kind of cross-platform piece of these types of spaces. So we got really into them and have been working. We went 0 to 100 over the last 6 months, 8 months, basically, and kind of are really just exploring it. And it's not something that's going to go away anytime soon. So we've had a lot of cool successes, and Andrew and Rebecca especially have been just like, yeah, let's do it, let's explore, let's kind of go all in. So they've been great partners.
Very cool. And have you guys done any of these shows yet?
We did a trial run in October, and we
Okay.
had some of the same comics that will be on our show next week. Tiffany was there, Devin Cook was there last time. Joe Christensen will be doing it for the first time. And I think it went pretty smoothly. I think we had Devin showed up a little bit late, and he had to use my VR equipment that I was using, or comrades or something. So we had to reuse one of them and have Devin perform as a different avatar. And it took a minute to get that set up. So I had to kind of practice my stalling skills, and then I think that was about the only real like hiccup that we had. I would say this meeting has been much more problematic than the actual trial run show.
Oh, it's all good. Nice. So then, for Rebecca and Andy, I mean, like when you guys got this, when you were started talking about doing virtual, VR comedy club and stuff like this, I mean, were you like just yes, any way that we can think of to perform, let's do it? I mean, did you have any kind of reservations? Like, okay, is this going to be super weird? And like, what is this? Like, are people even going to resonate with this? But like, what was
Yeah,
the reaction when you started
absolutely.
actually looking into this?
Yeah, I definitely had reservations, and I definitely thought it was going to be super weird, but all of that was instantly alleviated when I saw the facility, and I just saw like what a cool space they had. And then once I was there and put the equipment on, I was able to understand what it would look like and what the show would be, because I just, as well as Brian explained it to me, I just couldn't really picture it in my head. But
Yeah,
Sure.
and Patrick, a little bit more background on that is like just again, this kind of technology is still in its infancy, and like even the language around what we're in right now is evolving every day. So yeah, that's been kind of the big key, is like as we're explaining not only to the performers but to the general public about what to expect. A lot of times you just got to show them, or that you get them onboarded and they get to kind of check it out. And so that helps a lot. And what we actually do for the trial run and then for the show that we're having next Wednesday, or I guess this coming Wednesday, depending on how you phrase that. But um, we'll actually have all of the performers here at our facility, for just again, a private type event where they can actually be in full VR. And
Oh, cool.
when they're in the headsets, they actually have hands too, so that really lends itself to great body language that especially Andrew and Rebecca have really leaned into, as a part of, like, right, in your traditional performance. Body language for comedians is everything, right? That's like a good percentage of the comedy. So I think having them in headsets and with hands really adds to that. And so we'll have all the comedians here with us. Social distance. Every one of them has their own headset. No one's sharing equipment. Everyone's well spaced out throughout 6,000 square feet of facility we have here. So as far as that goes, we feel pretty good about that. But we are closed to the public. But this is kind of a way where we can still have the comedians come in and perform to the best of their ability with the technology that we have. So it's really cool to see kind of them with the headset on doing their skit and their whole 5 minutes. But then you come into the comedy show and you're like, whoa, it's I don't know, it's wild. It's been fun. So
Nice. So, excuse me. I mean, I know that, Andy, you said that a couple other people, some of the comics had tried this before. What was their reaction to performing this whole like VR environment?
We had some really positive feedback. I think they really enjoyed doing it, and they're excited to come back and do it again. I think like myself, certain people are skeptical because it's hard to convey just what the show is going to be like. But once they see for themselves, once they get the equipment on and get into the space, I think they think it's really cool. And the audience members, we had a lot of great feedback from the audience, and I think a lot of the people that were there for the free trial run show will also be purchasing tickets to the next one.
Yeah, it's super cool. So if you can see like Andrew's avatar, like when he talks, his head gets bigger. That also happens with the audience when they laugh. Like not only
nice.
like do you hear through the microphone, you see their heads swelling, which is super cool. And also one thing that was funny was as a performer, some people had their microphones on because we want to have them on so we can hear their laughter, but they would like be whispering like I'm at a comedy show. So it's like it was the weirdest heckle having to deal with like a whispered audience member, and just had to be like, hey, don't do that anyway. So that was an interesting VR challenge in that regard.
Yeah, and I think overall
this time
from
people will.
Oh, sorry, Andrew. Yeah,
this time people will receive instructions, so they'll know not to be talking into the microphone during the show, and they'll have instructions about how to move around in the space and how to design their avatar and stuff like that. So the people will go into it knowing a lot more about the event for the official grand opening show.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So Brian, I know you mentioned that you obviously you have the space, and you kind of went into more of like that consumer, like, hey, it's almost kind of like like you said, top off for VR, which I think is a cool way of putting it. What other types of events have you either tried or do you foresee this kind of working with? Are you thinking about trying to put this together as this becomes successful and you kind of venture into other areas?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what's been great again about Andrew and Rebecca is that they've like, you see them get super excited and they kind of want to own this space and help, curate the comedians and get stuff on the calendar, and we're all about that. So it's like with kind of them knowing the community and getting the right people involved, we can keep evolving this show to do what we're planning on doing, just basically monthlies right now. So second Wednesday of every month. And just kind of like continuing to grow and gain an audience, and having more comedians kind of perform with us. And so that's been really cool to kind of look at it a little bit more long term than kind of like, all right, let's we do a one off and you don't really come back to it. So that's been great for us, because it's like, all right, we've got the space and we're just going to get smarter each time about how to better do these, i.e. what we learned a lot from in the trial run. So that's good. That's behind us. But as far as like this tech goes, we've done a lot of other projects with local groups and with international groups so far. Like I said, especially in kind of the, you can imagine this as a museum and an art gallery. Like it lends itself really well, especially with all of those type of places being shut down right now. And then we do have a a massive project that will be public at the end of January that I cannot currently speak on, but it's going to be basically the world's largest version of this. And so it's going to really introduce the mass market to this type of technology. And I think that's going to just be good for all of these other projects and collaborators that we are kind of going into this venture with. So lots of cool stuff on the horizon, like I said, especially with the the entertainment space that people have really been missing. We're gonna try to, you know, get in on that, and like I said, COVID or not, you know, people enjoy kind of staying in a little bit more now. So, you know, maybe you don't feel like going out, but you can hop on the computer, you know, with the people you live with, and come watch a comedy show, and have a laugh for the first time in months, which we've seen is really really important. So
Nice. So, Andrew and Rebecca, so I know, you know, you guys still managed to find, you know, some places to perform live. I mean, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you guys have done some of the Zoom stuff whenever we kind of started going to Zoom, but like, you know, what's kind of for you, obviously, from like a performance standpoint, like, how does this feel? Like, how does this compare to doing things obviously live and then doing things over Zoom where you're still kind of sort of similar experience where, you know, you're performing, but you're just kind of, you know, sitting alone and looking into the computer, which I know is always kind of weird too.
Yeah, for me, it's always weird because I have to see my face when I perform, and that's horrifying. And no one should have to do that. Like even film actors don't have to look at the monitor, so that's a little different. But I mean, that's just kind of in the space that we exist in right now, and especially when COVID first hit, that's all we had. So we would be doing in like shows on Instagram, shows on Zoom, and Andrew and I actually had a show that we did on Instagram. We called it the Codependent Comedy Show, and we would just book comics and then, you know, share the screen and have them do some time, and that worked really well because you got to see the little hearts kind of like light up and stuff as like laughter, and people could leave comments, and it was nice, our show, because we were two people who got to laugh instead of just, you know, and like the comics would see two faces instead of just one, so that was kind of nice. And then yeah, with the closures and stuff kind of going back and forth, we've done live comedy, done shows, showcases or mics, but they kind of come and go. And then we were able to do some shows in the Dakotas these past 2 weeks, but it's just different, and the audiences are a little bit more reserved when you go out during live comedy, because it's like they're out, but they know that COVID's a thing, so they're a little bit more tight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question for you. I know, you know, I've gone to a few shows when things were actually kind of open again, and you can definitely see people feel a little more, you know, whether it's just the atmosphere because it's all spread out in, you know, the different rooms, or if it's just like you said, kind of knowing like, oh, is it okay for me to be out and, you know, doing all this kind of stuff? It definitely kind of has that feeling. So I was wondering if that translates to you guys on stage. That makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
I've noticed that people tense up when you talk about COVID because they sort of, there's a tendency to politicize it. So they think that if you start doing jokes about COVID, that you're going to have a certain political angle on it, and they get uncomfortable because of that.
Yes, and also one thing I noticed is, you know, you could be doing your best material, but for some reason, like in a live show during COVID, it seems like audiences respond best to talking about current things and then also crowd work, because they can only take kind of like what's in the present.
Right.
So if you do a joke that, I mean, like works in any other context, they're like, yeah, but like, I want you to talk about current things now. But also what's nice to lean on is crowd work, because you create the inside joke within the room, within the audience, and they feel a part of it, and they feel that special connection of being around people again. And that's one thing I noticed about COVID audiences. They kind of want more of like present things.
Sure. And Andrew and Rebecca, tell me, I know Andrew, you and me have talked before, but remind me again, how long have you guys been performing for? How long have you guys been doing comedy for?
I've been doing it a little over 10 years.
Yep, and I've been doing it 2 years, but before that, in my early 20s, I was a professional actor in the Twin Cities.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so shift and craft.
There you go. And you guys are both from around here, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep, here and Atlanta for me. So
Gotcha. Cool. So, I mean, this is kind of a bigger comedy question, and I'll get back to Brian about some of the VR stuff. But in terms of, I mean, like you said, I think you guys have been two of the more active people I've seen out here who are finding ways to perform, whether it's this, whether it's Zoom, whether it's, like you said, you know, there's shows still in the Dakotas and Wisconsin and things. I mean, how do you feel like, and this is kind of the big broad question, as things start to open back up, I mean, like, do you think that things will turn around pretty quick and go back to live comedy, or do you feel like there's going to be a period where you're going to be finding stuff like this to do, you know, alternatives to like live audiences and stuff like this for quite a while? Like, have you kind of started to think through what the future looks like, I guess I'll say, which feels like such a like cheeseball competition, but still.
Patrick, I work in the restaurant industry also, and my experience has been that people don't self-regulate. So as soon as it's legal to do comedy shows, we'll do them as much as possible.
Mhm.
I don't think there's a lot of people just canceling because it's a good idea. I think it's sort of, and here I guess I'm getting political, but it seems to me that, you know, if you want things to shut down, it needs to be mandated and enforced. And
Right.
as soon as we're allowed to do it, we'll pack rooms to whatever capacity we're allowed to do so. So I see it coming back as quickly as possible. I hope that's the case.
Yeah, I think that too. Yeah, people, when things open, people will be there. But again, kind of back to the audience thing, people right now, you know, they can look at a meme, you know, on Instagram for like a second and get a laugh. So audiences' attention spans for, you know, going on a journey for a laugh are going to be shortened. And it's just a little different, if that makes sense, but then also combined with actually connecting and seeing an actual human being on stage. So I
Yeah.
think like when they come back, it's going to be the performers who not only are good writers and, you know, by that being funny, but also are genuine on stage. Because before I started doing stand up, that's what I connected most with watching performers. Is it's like seeing each individual person and showing how like their like genuine side and how to present that on stage and make people laugh with it. So I think that people will want to flock to that.
Sure. So then, Brian, I feel like I'm kind of like I feel like I'm moderating a debate here a little bit, because obviously the idea of live crowds and stuff like that, I mean, that kind of feels like it's, you know, it negates some of this, right? But obviously you guys do have the in-person stuff where, you know, you want to have people come back to, you know, do this live and do this kind of, you know, experience VR in person and your guys' facilities and stuff like that. But how do you see these two things working together, you know, as things start to open back up, you know, in-person stuff, the VR stuff? Like, do you kind of see it being something, you know, you got to pick one or the other, or are you going to be able to kind of meld these two together and to kind of create a experience for, you know, for like, I know there's some clubs that are doing, you know, Zoom shows even when they're letting people back in. So if you're not comfortable coming back to a club yet, you know, you can watch it on Zoom. Do you feel like something you'll be able to kind of like plug into with this?
Yeah, I mean, and we, you know, we go back and forth internally over here about like, okay, well, if all of a sudden there's a vaccine and everything changes, like, are people gonna just jump back into that, or is it gonna be this kind of long tail of like, you know, another year, a year and a half of really like, you know, I think the last 2020 has fundamentally changed how all of us view how we spend our time and the things that we want to do, and so I think for a lot of people, they're gonna get used to the notion that I can I can still interact in new ways where I don't have to go out to an event. Um, and so I think we've got a long period of time with that in mind still. But we kind of see this platform as being not just something for COVID, but COVID proof, right? So this is another way where even if COVID didn't exist, uh, people from all around the country and around the world could join in events together and in spaces together. And so for us, that's really exciting, and we really see these type of spaces where you can reach them just from a URL on a web browser, right? No download. You know, you don't have to have a gaming computer. You don't have to log into something, like kind of this open, immersive web as being a fundamental part of the internet, you know, for years to come. Basically, we're just taking a baby step right now. So, um, yeah, so that's kind of why we're fully invested, and even if things change, this will be a big part of not only what we're doing, but what we think is still going to be going on well into the future.
Cool. And again, this is probably in the info Rebecca sent me, so I apologize. But in as far as like this room design, I mean, did you have like comedy club set up is like one of the potential things that you do with this, or is this something you kind of had
Yeah.
to build brand new once you start talking to these guys?
Yeah, no, this room is more or less all from scratch. You know, just thinking of general kind of like game design concepts and kind of pieces where it's like, all right, we actually all went into a first version of a club space, and we got really good feedback that a big part of the comedy experience is a really focused you know, a focus on, of course, the comedian, like the stage and the club design. As you right, if you picture in your head, I'm going to go to a comedy club, and I'm just thinking locally of like Acme. I've been there quite a bit. Like that is what people want to see in a club. Have we built spaces that are fantastical and floating in outer space and, you know, whimsical because you can with this technology? Yeah. But we just got really good feedback from the comics that like you really kind of want, you know, the stage to feel good and kind of the audience to be, you know, you don't want to reinvent the experience, but you want to do a good job of replicating it. And I think that's what we went for with this second design here. Um, but yeah, comedy club just happened to be, you know, as we found an opportunity to work with comics, you know, right. uh, for us it's like, hey, right, we want to do something with music, let's find musicians to work with, and same with comedians. It's kind of nice because like if we build it, hopefully they will come, right? So
Sure.
so yeah, this was just kind of one of a few different spaces that we've built over the last couple of months.
So Rebecca, you mentioned this too, but I asked, you know, both of you guys, you mentioned crowd work, and then obviously you mentioned, you know, the fact that not necessarily purposefully, but like, you know, if somebody whispers or, you know, you can hear somebody talking, it's almost kind of like a heckle. How does it feel having to deal with, you know, like crowd interaction, even though you're not physically in front of a crowd? Like, I mean, is that something that you've been able to kind of start to figure out, or how does that work for you guys?
It's kind of nice in a way because you're not looking at a person's face. So you're just looking at their robot avatar. So I mean, it's not like I'm mean or anything, but you just
Right.
there's a sense of removal. So you're like, hey, and like they have names and sometimes they don't change them. So it's like, hey, flat duck 298, can you not talk? That would be great. Or in the trial show, there was this one guest who was actually our downstairs neighbor in our apartment. She kept moving forward, so she was like on the stage when I was performing. And
Okay.
so I just had to like sidestep her, and I'm like, "Hey, Crest Duck, back up, Crest Duck! Everyone shout, move back!" You know, so it's kind of a fun thing to play with because again, audience members like it's kind of that thing of the inside joke. You know, even like going back to high school and your friends, you would laugh the hardest at your inside jokes when you kind of get to create that in a comedy show and especially in a virtual space like people enjoy because they see something happen that's funny right in front of them in the moment.
Mhm.
So I think it's fun to kind of do it with the crowd work, and also too you can also crowd work kind of based on what their avatar looks like or their
Mhm.
robot, you know, and stuff like that. So there's things to play around with.
And there's also the messenger feature where you can heckle via text and post a message that everyone in the room sees on the bottom of their screen. So that was something I had to deal with, where my mom at the trial run show was pointing out my mistakes via messenger. And that, yeah, that's a new skill we're gonna have to acquire. Trying to respond to the text heckles on the screen is very distracting. Trying to read those and do your bits at the same time. And I just wanted to talk about the like replicating the comedy club versus like the whimsical aspect of it,
Yeah.
because I think with virtual comedy, you know, obviously live comedy is going to be, you know, the best thing, but there are certain advantages to this, such as importing objects, props. Um, you know, I think during the trial run, a Donald Trump like cutout was inserted, and we were able to, and you can pick up these objects. If you've got the virtual equipment, you can pick up the objects and chuck them around. You can set them on things. We had a bong also. Yeah, so there's the horse right there.
I think I just threw it out the window.
But yeah, so there's the idea of like we want to simulate and make things as realistic as possible, try to recreate that comedy experience. But there are new opportunities within the comedy itself of how to incorporate the bits into this context, and that's what's really fun to explore.
Very cool. Well, this is awesome. I love this. I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm really glad you sent this to me. I think this is a super cool concept. I'm, you know, anything that, you know, I've done the Zoom shows and those are fine. And I think this is, you know, like you said, it feels a little bit more interactive. Like it feels less weird, to Rebecca's point, that I'm not like staring at myself and have to be super mindful of, like, how do I come off on screen. So I think this is a really cool idea. I think this is, you know, I'm really curious to see the live show in this. I'm definitely excited to check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Cool, man. Was there anything else that I forgot about, Brian? Is there anything you want to talk about? Obviously, from like the, you know, the REM5 and the technology standpoint, anything, you know, as far as this specific event is concerned? I heard, Brian, did you say you guys are going to do this the second Wednesday of every month? That's the plan?
Yeah, and talking with Andrew, like, you know, that's kind of a big piece for us too, as we're doing all this work up front and learning and making just a continually better experience. We figure, you know, let's just keep this rolling, because we don't know what the future holds. You know, all we can plan for is that we can't plan at all. But you know, it's like if we start to build some, you know, because I think a lot of comedy clubs or breweries, like, building in consistency for when shows is super helpful, especially when people have no idea even what week of the year it is right now. So it's like, hey, all you got to remember, it's just like second Wednesday. You know, if you miss this month, we've got next month. And so I think that's a big piece in kind of building the momentum behind this. And as more people try it out and they go, this is for me, I want to be here every single month, and we start, you know, you get like regulars or people who want to come back. That's awesome. But you're also going to get the people that, you know, tell their friends, like, I went to the craziest thing last week. Like, you really won't actually believe what I did. And so, you know, all of those reactions are great for us, and it continues to help us learn and improve. And, you know, there's even just some minor things, like from the first room we had to this room, is that I'm starting to work on, like, basically running the show from a producer level. So I've got this little, above you, I built a little crow's nest where I've got a video screen that actually counts down 5 minutes. So the comedians can tell how much long, you know, we don't have the classic light in the back of the room to kind of flicker. So this is a way that they can see it in real time, and we can really help, you know, kind of coordinate. All right, we're going to bring on the next person. I've got a sound clip I'm going to trigger that's applause and it's music and they're coming on, and it just helps to make it feel more robust. And I think that's, you know, after every single month, we're just going to have new pieces of the puzzle that keep getting us to this really refined and really cool experience for people. So that's the really exciting part.
For sure.
Yeah, no, one thing I've noticed is that the in-home VR experience is becoming very affordable, and I think a lot more people are purchasing the Oculus or whatever it's called. And we had a few people show up at the trial run show from home with their own VR equipment, and the price is the same either way, but it's a much more enhanced experience if you do have the equipment. And I think that's what's kind of driving a lot of the interest in the show, is people who have these goggles and they're just itching to use them, you know?
I was going to say, I'd be curious to see after Christmas, when you see how many people get like the Oculus and stuff, the first show, people are going to be like stuck in the corner, like first person, like shooter gamers, where people just get like stuck doing. You have a lot of people punching the walls and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's definitely still a learning curve, and that's something that we continue to kind of do on our end, is, you know, how do we set this up so that, like you said, you know, it actually ended up being probably the funniest part of the first show was when your mom was on stage, and like kind of these accidents that happen where you can make fun of everyone trying out something new together. You know, like Rebecca said, we're kind of all in on it, where, you know, like, oops, like you know, my mic was still on, or, you know, it's these things where you're not used to this medium, which is, it's great. I mean, we all got to figure it out eventually, so might as well start now.
Right, and things go wrong in a live comedy show too, so it's not something unique to virtual reality, you know.
Yeah. But
definitely.
but Patrick, I think what we were saying too is that, like, at the kind of COVID era shows where people can't really feel like they're a part of the group, they're spread out, or you have to, you don't even get to like look or talk at other people anymore. Like, that's not okay. Like, in general public discourse, but in here we're like, hey, bring it in, come up to the stage, get right up in the action, and you'll be standing right next to someone, and you can hear them laugh, and that makes you laugh. It's really that group sense, as you're all really in the space together. It's not an individual experience, which is really cool. I think that's a big piece of what we're kind of working towards.
And
It
you
is
can make
nice.
fun of whoever you want without getting your ass kicked off the show.
That's true. No one's meeting you in the parking lot. But like, one thing that's cool is people that are like even spread out across the country, like they can go to an event and virtually stand side by side and laugh side by side with each other. So that's something very, very unique to this specific medium.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and even too, like, I'm thinking about kind of the other clubs I've been to. Like, sometimes, after the show, you'll see comedians grabbing a drink or whatever, and that's in person and stuff too. But in between sets, when Andrew and Rebecca come back off the stage, they're working around the room, and you can actually mingle with them before and after the show, and it's a really kind of more intimate, VIP, personalized kind of show, because you could come up and really have a conversation with them, or talk about a joke that they did that you thought was just hysterical, and get that more one-on-one, rather than like, all right, the show's over, everybody go home, and that's, go back to your lives. And that's kind of a cool way too, where the show, we'll try to get it to start at 8, but we're going to open up the room by 7:30, and people can kind of come in, get their bearings, if they haven't done the onboarding yet, to make sure that they know how to move around, make sure their audio is all good. And so I think that's another kind of really cool piece to it too.
Absolutely. Well, no, like I said, I'm excited to check it out, the live experience. Like I said, it's been, I fully admit, and this makes me feel like I'm 100 years old saying this. Like, I mean, obviously I understand, I know people who have like the Oculus, but I was always kind of like, so what do you do now that you have all this stuff? I think this is a way of, like you said, like I think it makes it real for people, and it helps, people like me who maybe aren't super like in the know about it, be like, oh, okay, this is a cool thing I can do with it. And I think it'll be, I think it'll be something that'll also encourage more people to want to try it, which I think is really cool. So no, I'm really impressed that you guys are doing this, and that you're thinking outside the box. I think that there's a lot of people who are giving up creatively from a comedy standpoint of how to keep doing shows. They're just kind of like, whatever, we'll just wait it out at this point. You guys aren't doing that. So this is very cool. I commend you for it.